Hello, champions, and welcome back to PW English. And I am your Diksha ma'am. So, in the previous class, we have discussed the one part of the chapter human reproduction. Today, we will be discussing about the second part, wherein we will study the menstrual cycle, hormonal controls of spermatogenesis, oogenesis, as well as fertilization, implantation, and everything about it. But in the previous class, I have asked you two questions. First question was what duct in or in which duct these sperms are stored and nourished. The answer for that question is epididymis. So epididymis is that duct in the male reproductive system that stores the sperm. And the second question on what gland are known as skin glands. The paraurethral or the lesser vestibular glands, they are also known as skin glands in the female reproductive system. So all those who have given the right answers in the comment, a big round of applause for all of those and who have tried, but if they are still wrong, I will suggest all of them to please correct your answers and do not commit that mistake again. So let's get started with the hormonal control, guys. So we have hormonal control. So what about the hormonal control? Our body, whether it's a male or a female, somehow it's controlled by hormones. And these sex hormones, especially in the females, plays a very, very, very important role. So I'm going to start with the hormonal control of spermatogenesis first. So I'm going to start with the hormonal control of spermatogenesis. How does the spermatogenesis is controlled by hormones? So we have one gland which name is hypothalamus. So we have one gland which name is hypothalamus. Hypothalamus secretes the hormone GnRH, gonadotropin releasing hormone, right? So hypothalamus secretes the hormone GnRH, gonadotropin releasing hormone, and this helps in the release of gonadotropins. Now, what are gonadotropins? The FSH and LH, they are collectively known as gonadotropins. So, you also know gonadotropins, the FSH and LH, they are secreted by pituitary gland. Which gland? Anterior pituitary. So, GnRH will go to anterior pituitary. Which pituitary? Anterior pituitary. An anterior pituitary will secrete two hormones. One is follicle stimulating hormone and another is luteinizing hormone, right? So, this FSH will go to Sertoli cells. Which cells? Sertoli cells. And Sertoli cell will secrete inhibin. Yes, so Sertoli cell also secretes a hormone. So whatever are hormones, I'm going to put them in a box so that it becomes more clear to you. So these all are hormones. Okay. So this inhibin, it gives negative feedback. It gives negative feedback to anterior pituitary so that there is no more secretion of these hormones because Sertoli cells helps in spermatogenesis. So this is how when there are a lot of sperms, when there are a lot of sperms on the Sertoli cell's head. If you remember, in the previous class, we have discussed that Sertoli cells play a vital role in spermatogenesis. Fine. I have told you that the Sertoli cell's head is full of a lot of spermatids, later on which will become a sperm. So when Sertoli's cell is completely occupied, when the Sertoli cell is completely occupied by a lot of these spermatids, at that time the Sertoli cell knows that there are a lot of cells, we don't need to produce more. There are already a lot of spermatids, don't need to produce more sperms. So at that time, the Sertoli cell will secrete inhibin. What it will secrete? It will secrete inhibin. Now, inhibin will tell the pituitary, we don't want to produce more sperms. Why? Because we already have a lot of. Right? So that's why the Sertoli cell helps in spermatogenesis. Also, it gives negative feedback so that no more spermatogenesis can take. Similarly, LH will go to Leydig cells and Leydig cells will produce testosterone, which is an androgen. Testosterone gives negative feedback to both hypothalamus as well as pituitary because this testosterone also helps in spermatogenesis. So if there is a lot of amount of testosterone, there will be more, spermatogenesis or other things that happen in the body. So its concentration or its amount need to be controlled at some point, right? You cannot exceed that level. So for that, there is a negative feedback. If somehow in a male there is excessive production of testosterone, that will give negative feedback to your hypothalamus as well as pituitary, that do not produce more LH. We don't need testosterone more because there is already a lot amount of testosterone, right? Okay, so this was about the hormonal control of spermatogenesis, that means the production of sperm. Next, we have the hormonal control of oogenesis. Hormonal control of oogenesis in a female. All right. So female have, a little of the complex hormones as comparison to male. How? Let's see. First of all, we have hypothalamus. We have hypothalamus. Hypothalamus, as you know, it will produce GnRH, and GnRH will go to anterior pituitary. This is similar in male as well as in female. Again, the next step is similar. The anterior pituitary will produce FSH as well as LH. As we have discussed previously, the FSH, which is a follicle stimulating hormone, this hormone helps in the growth of ovarian follicle. So, whenever there is high concentration of FSH, there will be growth of ovarian follicle. Of ovarian follicle. All right. Now, so whenever there is more LH, okay, because anterior pituitary is producing LH, LH helps in the rupture of these follicles. So in a female, always, first of all, there will be the high production of FSH, and later on there will be the high production of, okay, whatever ovarian follicles have been grown, because during the growth of ovarian follicle, the follicles get mature, and later on this mature follicle, LH will bind, and it will cause the blast or the rupture of these follicle, and that you call it as the ovulation. So LH helps in rupture of ovarian follicle, and what do you call it as? You call it as ovulation, right? Now, after ovulation, the oocyte is released, and whatever left is known as a corpus luteum. What is formed? Corpus luteum. Corpus luteum is yellow color body, and it is an endocrine body. This is, it produces a lot of hormones, but the major hormone produced by corpus luteum is progesterone. What does it produce? It produces progesterone. So it produces progesterone in high amount, okay. So if someone asks you what is the source of progesterone in a female's body, you will say that's corpus luteum. Otherwise, it also produces a very small amount of estrogen, relaxin, and inhibin. And inhibin. You all know what is a function of inhibin. Yes, inhibin gives negative feedback to anterior pituitary, right? Whenever there is high amount of this hormone, it will give negative feedback to anterior pituitary so that no more hormones are released. All right. What is a function of progesterone? It helps in maintain endometrium, right? So whenever in a female there is low amount of progesterone, the endometrium will shed off. You all know what is endometrium? Yes. Endometrium is the inner lining of the uterus that gets flow off, or that gets, sheds off during menstruation. So in a female, if there is high amount of progesterone, there will be, endometrium will be maintained. So also we say that during pregnancy, we want to maintain endometrium so that there will be formation of placenta, right? So in a female during pregnancy, the one hormone which will always be higher, that will be progesterone. Also, we say that this progesterone is the main pregnancy. So this is the reason why progesterone is known as the main pregnancy hormone. Okay. Or otherwise, these follicles, what are they producing? The mature follicle. After growth, the follicle which has been matured is known as a mature follicle or Graafian follicle. This Graafian follicle will produce high amount of estrogen. It is a source of estrogen. So estrogen and progesterone are the main female hormones. Now, what is this role of the estrogen? It maintain secondary sexual character. Maintain secondary sexual characters. What are these secondary sexual characters? Yes, like formation of breast, development of these all the reproductive organs in a female, or we can say also in female, this helps in a growth of endometrium. But maintenance of endometrium, it's the main role played by the progesterone. So estrogen gives negative feedback to pituitary. So this is a point, please understand this, because if you understand this here, the menstrual cycle is like, a little game, for you. Fine. If you understand all the hormones of a female, you understand a female. We always say na females are complicated. That's the reason. See, if you cannot understand the hormones of a female, how can you understand a female? So progesterone gives negative feedback. This hormone, I'm writing in the next slide. The progesterone, this is very important. Progesterone. Progesterone gives negative feedback to anterior pituitary. Okay. But for what? For both FSH and LH. So I say if there is high amount of progesterone, if I say there is high amount of progesterone, there will be low amount of FSH and LH. Okay. Next. Next is estrogen. So in a female, if there is high amount of estrogen, it will give negative feedback to anterior pituitary again. But for what? For FSH. For FSH. But this same hormone gives positive feedback to anterior pituitary for LH. Now you will say, or you must have a question in the mind, that here it is giving negative feedback to anterior pituitary. That's okay, because anterior pituitary forms both the hormones. But there might be a question in your mind, ma'am, if this is giving anterior pituitary feedback, if estrogen is giving negative feedback to anterior pituitary, why LH is having the positive one? The reason is because in anterior pituitary, the cells that secrete FSH and LH both are different. If I have this gland which is anterior pituitary, it has different cells for FSH secretion and it has different cells for LH secretion. So this is how the negative feedback can be different and it can be altered. So remember, whenever there is high estrogen in a female's body, there will be low FSH, right? But there will be high L. All right, very simple. If you understand the hormones, you understand everything. Okay, so let's just revise it one more time for the future. Hypothalamus is a gland that produces a hormone. Again, I'm putting, boxes. I'm putting boxes on hormones. It produces hormone, which is DNRH, and later on, which will produce FSH and LH. Okay. DNRH is hormone secreted by hypothalamus. This will stimulate the anterior pituitary, and anterior pituitary will secrete these hormones. FSH leads to the growth of follicles, and follicles secrete the hormone estrogen. Now, estrogen, because it's in high amount, it will lead to the production of LH because it gives positive feedback to LH. But at the same time, it gives negative feedback for FSH. Now, LH has arrived. It is going to cause a rupture of the follicles. These follicles are going to produce a hormone, which is main hormone, which is progesterone. Okay, after rupturing, a gland is formed, which is corpus luteum. Progesterone gives negative feedback to both FSH and as well as LH. Progesterone, it maintains the endometrium, so also we call it as the main pregnancy hormone. All right. Okay. So I hope you have a basics of hormones, right? So let's just talk about menstrual cycle, because it's quite very important, right? So when I am teaching you menstrual cycle, just don't write anything, you just listen to me like a story. Okay, just put all your mind, all your focus on this topic only, guys. Okay, just trust me, it's quite simple. After studying menstrual cycle from me, you will remember me forever. I assure you, right? You can vouch on me. So menstrual cycle, first of all, menstrual term, from where it arrives? Derives from menses. From where it arrives? It arrives from menses, which means a month. Because this cycle is of 28 to 29 days. But it's not strict. Some female have for 30 days, for 31, and some have for around 40 days, which have different medical conditions. But in a healthy female, it varies from 28, 29, 30. Okay. So this cycle, menstrual cycle, it contains two cycles. One is a uterine cycle and another is ovarian cycle. So in a menstrual cycle, we say menstrual cycle, it consists of two cycles because two organs are involved here in a female. One cycle is going on in the uterus, another cycle is going on in the ovary. Okay. Uterine cycle is dependent upon the ovarian cycle because ovaries will secrete the hormones. Ovaries will secrete the hormones. So uterine cycle is dependent upon the ovarian cycle. Second thing, whenever a female have her first menses, what do you call it as? You call it as menarche. What do you call it as? Menarche. When there is stoppage of, when there is stoppage of cycle, this menstrual cycle, we call it as menopause. Menopause, it arrives around age of 45 to 50 in a female. So when in a female, all the follicles, they are, there no follicles are left. When in a female around 45 to 50 years of age, when no follicles are left in her body, there will be no source of estrogen and the cycle will stop there. So that situation is known as the menopause. Okay. The first menses in a female's life during puberty, that's a menarche. But when it stops at the age of 40 to 50 years of age, that's the menopause. And why does a menopause occur in a female? No follicles are left. No follicles are left. All right. So, menstrual cycle, are these the character of just human female? No. Menstrual cycle occurs in the primates, all primates. So, monkey, chimpanzee, they all means all female have the menstrual cycle. All right. So, as I've told you, there are two cycles in a menstrual cycle. One is a uterine cycle, another is the ovarian cycle. The complete menstrual cycle is divided into four phases. How many phases? Four phases. So, there are four phases in a menstrual cycle. How many phases, guys? Four phases. Okay. So, the first phase is the menstruation itself. Okay. So, the first phase is menstruation, wherein a female undergo bleeding, and normally we call it as periods. Second, we have follicular phase. It is also known as proliferative phase. Proliferate. Why it is known as this proliferative phase, I will let you know when we will be discussing the menstrual cycle in detail. Okay. Third is ovulation, the rupture of Graafian follicle, and the fourth is secretory phase or luteal phase. Why it is known as secretory or luteal phase, we will be discussing in the later section. Okay. Right now, just remember there are total four phases. One is menstruation, then we have follicular phase, then we have ovulation, then we have secretory. Okay. So we'll start with the menstrual phase. Let's see the diagram of NCRT. So this is the diagram of NCRT. We are going step by step. Okay. So this entire cycle is of how many days? From 1 to 29. You can see here 1 to 20. Okay. So here uterine events are occurring. That means what is happening in the uterus. Here ovarian hormones peak are there. Whatever hormones are secreted by the ovary. Here what is happening in the ovary? These are ovarian events. And here the pituitary hormones. Okay. All right. So we'll start with the menstruation phase. I've told you the menstruation phase is the phase where a female undergoes menstrual bleeding, right? The endometrium it sheds off. As I have told you, endometrium will only be sheds off when there is low progesterone. So during menstruation, there is very low level of progesterone. As you can see, the peak of progesterone here, it's very low. Here, the peak of progesterone is low. So when there is no progesterone, there will be no maintenance of endometrium. The endometrium will shed off, leads to the first phase, that is menstruation. So during menstruation phase, we have low progesterone. So if there is low progesterone, endometrium will shed off. Another thing that will happen, progesterone gives negative feedback to pituitary. When there is no progesterone, there will be no negative feedback. That means now FSH will come. FSH will arrive. When FSH arrives, what happens? FSH leads to the growth of ovarian follicle. Now the growth of follicle is happening here. So this you can see during the first 5 day, the endometrium is shedding off, FSH is rising, and ovarians are going to grow. Now, this menstruation, it is just for 1 to 5 days. Here, the female endometrium sheds off along with mucus and blood. It will come out through the vagina, right? Now, after fifth day, the FSH will be there. You know, the peak of FSH will arise. Okay, that means the FSH is going towards the peak. Not the peak has arrived on fifth day. It is going towards the peak. Peak. Its level is rising. So at the fifth day, the peak, it's going towards the peak, the hormonal level is going up. As a result, there is more growth of follicle. So there will be a time when there a mature follicle is formed. As you can see, mature follicle is the source of estrogen. So that's why the estrogen peak has been arrived. All right. So here what happened? The FSH, due to FSH, the follicles are growing and follicles are the source of estrogen. So estrogen is forming a peak here. All right. Now, as I've told you, when there is high level of estrogen, there will be high level of LH. Yes, because estrogen gives a negative feedback to FSH, but it gives positive feedback to LH. Now, when the estrogen has moved up, there will be more LH. There will be peak of LH. So, as a result, during 14 day, there will be rupture of this follicle, mature follicle, which will lead to ovulation. On which day? 14th day. Which day? 14th. Right? Now, in between 5th and 14th day, we call this cycle as, or the phase as, the follicular phase. Why you call it as a follicular phase? Because the most development has taken place here. The most development of ovarian follicle has taken place here. That's why you call it as a follicular phase. Now, why you call it as a proliferative phase? Because there is high level of estrogen, and estrogen will now increase the number of endometrium. It will tell endometrium that please divide. When they divide, the cells divide, they are now getting ready for progesterone, right? There are two things. Estrogen leads to the division of endometrium cells, whereas progesterone leads to the increase in size of the cell. Fine. Progesterone leads to the increase in size of the cell, and estrogen leads to the increase in number of the cell. So progesterone's main function is to grow the cells and maintain them so that endometrium will remain stick to the uterus. It should not come off. Okay. So here what is happening? There is proliferation of uterine epithelium also. So that's why this phase is known as proliferative phase. Proliferative means growth. Okay. That means multiplication, dividing. Something is going up. All right. So on 14th day, the ovulation has taken place. Now what will happen? After ovulation, whatever is left behind of this, it will become corpus luteum. Corpus luteum is yellow color body and it is a rich source of progesterone. Corpus luteum will show its maximum activity at 21st day. So you can see at 21st day there is high level of progesterone. And there is the maximum growth of uterine epithelium, right? Why? Because I've told you the main source of progesterone is corpus luteum, and corpus luteum is maintained by LH. So there is a simple funda. If there is more LH, if there is more estrogen, there is more LH. If there is more LH, there will be more corpus luteum. More corpus luteum means corpus luteum will be maintained. Its activity will be higher. If there is higher corpus luteum, there will be higher progesterone. If there is higher progesterone, there will be growth of uterine lining. And if there is growth in the uterine lining, then there will be no shedding off. There is no shedding of the uterine epithelium. Right? That's it. So if I say at the last days around 29, the LH drops, right? If the LH drops, the corpus luteum will not be maintained. There will be no progesterone and uterine epithelium will slow off. And this is what happened during. So this is how in a female the cycle will move. Okay. So I'm just telling you in a simple way. In the first 5 days, the progesterone is lower. If the progesterone is lower, what will happen? There will be more FSH. Increase in FSH, but there will be shedding of the endometrium lining. Now, as there is more FSH, the ovarian follicle will grow, and the growing ovarian follicle will form a lot of estrogen. When there is more estrogen, there will be more proliferation of the cells of uterine epithelium. As a result, the uterine epithelium is growing. Now, when there is more estrogen as well, there will be more LH, which will lead to the ovulation, the rupture of follicle. When there is rupture of follicle, there will be formation of corpus luteum. So, whenever we have LH, corpus luteum will be highly active, and it will be producing a lot of progesterone. When there is a lot of progesterone, there will be maintenance of uterine epithelium. But when the LH falls, the corpus luteum will not work, progesterone will go off, and now the endometrium will shed off. Right? So, this is what happens in a female's body every month, and this cycle goes on and on and on. Fine. So, if someone asks you, what are the days of menstruation? You will say first 5 days are for menstruation. What are the days of follicular phase? Around 5 to 13. What is the day of ovulation? 14. And secretory phase lasts 14 days from 15 to 29. Okay. If someone asks you which is a highly fixed phase, you will say luteal. Which is highly variable phase, that's the follicular. What does it mean? You must have heard that in a female, the menstrual cycle is not regular. Sometimes she gets menstruation on another day, sometimes on another day, right? Like she has some months she has a cycle of 40 days, and some months she has a cycle of around 50 days. Yes, it happens in a female. So at that time, which phase has been disturbed? This phase, follicular phase, has been disturbed. So this is always variable. Okay. So if this gets disturbed, the ovulation will get disturbed. But this phase is always fixed. After the ovulation has taken place, it will only take 14 days. The luteal phase is for 14 days only. Okay. This one which I am writing are the days, like first to fifth 5 day. Okay. And this is the 5 to 15th day of menstrual cycle. And this is 14th day of menstrual cycle. I'm not writing 14 days. I'm writing the 14th day. Okay. So that's how you can find out when the female's ovulation has taken place. So there is a formula for find out when does ovulation has taken place. Total number of days of menstrual cycle minus 14. Because as I've told you, this is a fixed phase of 14 days. So after the ovulation has taken place, they will always take 14 days. Total days, for example, I have 30. Okay. Or for example, for more accuracy, we take 28. So what is the day of ovulation? 14th. If someone has a cycle of around 40 days, if a female has a cycle of around 40 days, when does the ovulation will take place? Please tell me in the comment section. I will check that out. Okay. So if a female has a cycle of around total 40 days, 40, what is the day of ovulation? How can you find the day of ovulation? By this formula, tell me what is the day of ovulation in a female with 40 days of menstrual cycle. Okay. So in menstruation, what happened? There is low level of progesterone. Low level of progesterone, endometrium sheds off. Endometrium sheds off. Okay. So what happened in a follicular phase? Growth of follicles. Growth of follicles. And what is up here? What is up here in a follicular phase? Increase in estrogen. There is increase in estrogen. Okay. Now, what happens during ovulation? LH surge. Now, what does this word means? That means high level of LH. High level of LH. Why? Because it is high level of estrogen. So, for that, you will find that word LH surge. So, do not get confused. It's just an English word. LH surge means high level of LH. Okay. Then we have secretory or luteal phase. So, the secretory or luteal phase, this is for around 15 to 29 days. And there is high level of progesterone. High level of progesterone. Why? Because corpus luteum is working very well. All right. So this was about the female's menstrual cycle. Let's discuss further about the fertilization and other process. Okay, let's get started with the fertilization. All right, so let's discuss fertilization. So I have tied little of my hair because I was looking like a ghost. Anyways, so fertilization. What's a fertilization? So you must have learned about that fertilization is fusion of gametes. Then what's a syngamy? So fusion of gametes. But if I tell you what is a fertilization, it is not only the syngamy, but it contains syngamy plus all the events. Plus all the events that lead to syngamy. So fertilization includes all events that leads to syngamy plus the syngamy. Okay. Now, what's the syngamy? Fusion of gametes. Fusion of gametes. Okay. Now, how does a fertilization takes place? Let's get started from the beginning. What will happen? First of all, insemination will take place. The male and female both have produced the gametes, and that's the gametogenesis, right? Now these gametes, they want to meet, they want union, and the fertilization in human is internal fertilization. What's internal fertilization? The fertilization that takes place inside the body of a person or an organism. So the female gamete is inside female and the male gamete is inside the male. They want to meet. How will they meet? So the male will deposit that semen. What is semen? The seminal fluid plus sperms into the female's reproductive tract, that is vagina. And from there, sorry, the sperm will move up into the uterus. Okay, so what is insemination? The the deposition of semen into female tract, to female reproductive tract. And now what is that female reproductive tract? That is vagina. So when does it is deposited? During sexual intercourse. Okay. Now what will happen if this is uterus? If this is uterus like this, and that's vagina. So the male has deposited this semen here. Okay, if this is a semen. And that's a fallopian tube. That's a fallopian tube. Okay. The fertilization takes place at this point and you call it as ampulla. What do you call it as? Ampulla. Ampulla is the site of fertilization. Okay. After ovulation, after ovulation, the oocyte has arrived here. The oocyte has arrived here. Okay. This entire portion is ampulla. Okay. Now the sperms from here, with its whiplash movement. What is whiplash movement? The movement of the tail and the contraction of the female's reproductive tract. The sperm will move up higher in the fallopian tube like this. Okay, and it will meet the ovum here, the oocyte here like this. Okay, so here the fertilization will take place. So the sperm has to ascend. Ascent means going up towards the fallopian tube. So the ascent of sperm takes place by two methods. What is that? One is whiplash movement. You know what is whip? What is whip? Yes, whiplash movement. The movement like this. So the whiplash movement of its tail, the sperm will move up, plus the female's reproductive tract contraction will help the sperm to ascend. Female reproductive tract contraction. All right. Now, as the sperm is moving up, it is undergoing a lot of changes. And what these changes are? These are known as capacitation. So, as the sperm has arrived here, as the sperm has arrived near the fallopian tube, it is undergoing a lot of changes, and these changes are capacitation, changes in sperm. So, why these changes are important? Why these changes are important? Because if these changes does not occur, the sperm will not be able to fertilize the ovum. If these changes does not occur, the sperm will not be able to fertilize the ovum. Now what are these changes? As you know, this is how the sperm looks like. Okay, we have drawn this already. So this is how it looks like. Okay, so it has this membrane, and this membrane is plasma membrane. Beneath this is present the acrosome. What is present? Acrosome. And this acrosome contains a lot of proteases or enzymes. Okay, and these enzymes are important for penetrating the walls of ovum. Okay, to go inside the ovum. The first thing that will happen is this membrane will disintegrate. this membrane will disintegrate. So the first thing that will occur is this membrane will disintegrate and the acrosome will be exposed like this. Acrosome will be exposed. So this is how the plasma membrane, this is how the acrosome gets exposed, how the plasma membrane disintegrate, and that gets disintegrate with the removal of cholesterol. You all know the plasma membrane have cholesterol. So here there is removal of cholesterol. There is removal of cholesterol. Removal of cholesterol from plasma membrane. From plasma membrane. Okay, second thing that will happen, there is entry of a lot of calcium ions. A lot of calcium ions will enter here. Why? Because calcium ions helps in movement. If there is more calcium ion, there will be more formation of energy and there will be more movement of this tail. There will be more movement of tail. So the first thing that happen is removal of cholesterol, due to which there is disintegration of the plasma membrane, and now it can easily, expose. There is more exposure of the acrosome. Why we want the acrosome to get exposed? Why there is a need of acrosome to get exposed? The reason is because it contains a lot of the these proteases or the enzyme that helps in the penetration. Okay, penetration to what? The ovum. Second thing that will happen is there is entry of calcium ions. There is entry of calcium ions. As a result, it will lead to the more movement of the tail and it will run like anything. Second thing is third thing is removal of decapacitation factors. So epididymis, when it stores the sperm, removal of decapacitation factors. The epididymis, when it stores the sperm, it gives it some factors like this. These are decapacitation factors which are removing now. Okay, these factors of proteins, they will prevent the capacitation. We want that capacitation should always take place in the fallopian tube. Where should it take place? In fallopian tube. Okay, if the capacitation takes place in the male reproductive tract somehow, the sperm lifespan is around only 48 hours. Only 48 hours. So it will, 48 to 72 hours. It will, disintegrate in 1, 2, or 3 days. Okay. So we want the capacitation should take place in the female reproductive tract, so that after that the lifespan will be more of a sperm and it can easily penetrate the ova. If the capacitation takes place inside the male reproductive tract, the sperm will of the no use. When it will enter into the female, it will be around dead. Okay, so we always want the capacitation should take place in the female reproductive tract. So the epididymis has given some factors. Factors are proteins only. They stick to the head of the sperm, and this is how they will not allow the removal of cholesterol. But when the sperm enters female reproductive tract, these factors, they will get removed. Why? Due to change in the pH and other factors in a female's fallopian tube. Okay, so these three changes are very much important in a sperm, because if it wants to penetrate the oocyte. All right. Okay, now next thing that will happen is the acrosomal reaction. What is acrosomal reaction? Let's see. Acrosomal reaction, that means somewhere acrosome is related. I've told you acrosome secretes enzymes, right? So acrosomal enzymes, let's see like acrosomal enzymes first. What are the acrosomal enzymes secreted by acrosome? The first one is corona penetrating enzyme, and its short form is CPE. The second is hyaluronidase. Second is hyaluronidase, and third one is zonalysin. Okay, let's draw the structure of oocyte and what other layers it has, what is present in the fallopian tube. Okay, after ovulation, what are the things it carries? As we have already discussed it, there will be a center cell which is a queen cell, that's the oocyte, that's secondary oocyte, which is surrounded by a glycoproteinaceous layer, that is zona pellucida, and a lot of cells known as corona radiata. What is it? corona radiata. Okay. So, guys, what do we have here? We have these cells of corona radiata. Cells of corona radiata. Okay. All these cells of corona radiata, they want something so that they could stick to them together. Okay. Because they must have, they get disintegrated. These are just cells only. So they wanted a glue like structure, and that glue like structure present in between the cells of corona radiata is hyaluronic acid. What is hyaluronic acid? It is a polysaccharide. The polysaccharide, it's a polysaccharide. Sorry, it's not a polysaccharide. It's a mucopolysaccharide. That's a kind of polysaccharides that are, sticky, like it's present in ladyfinger and in the aloe vera, just a gel like. So this is what? This is hyaluronic acid. And that's, I've told you, that's secondary oocyte. Okay. And this one is zona pellucida. Zona pellucida. Right? Okay. So now sperm is a very little structure in front of your, what do you say, the ova or oocyte. So sperm is like this, very little. Okay. So it has to enter in the cytoplasm of oocyte, right? Because I've told you, if when the sperm will enter, only then the oocyte will complete its meiosis too, and it will become ovum. Okay. So the destination of the sperm is to enter here. So it has to cross through these layers. So how it will cross? It will secrete all its enzyme, acrosomal enzyme. They will help in the erosion or destruction of these walls, and this is how it will become a passage and the sperm can easily enter. So we have different enzymes. First of all, we will destroy the hyaluronic acid between the corona radiata cells. So hyaluronidase, it will digest hyaluronic acid. It will digest hyaluronic acid. Okay. Then, after hyaluronic acid has been digested, there are certain cells of corona radiata. There are a lot of cells of corona radiata. You need to penetrate them. You need to destroy them. So it will digest cells of corona radiata. All right. Now, where have we reached, guys? We have reached the zona pellucida. So to destroy the zona pellucida, we have zona lysine. So here it will digest zona pellucida. Right? So nature has its own way to check whether the sperm is of human or of any other species. So for the species recognition, for what? Species recognition, to check if whether the sperm is of the human or any other species. To check the species, for species recognition, the zona pellucida have ZP receptors. ZP receptor. Okay. It's like a lock and key mechanism. Okay. So if a sperm have a lot of protein on its surface, if these proteins are recognized by zona pellucida receptors, if these proteins are recognized by zona pellucida receptors clearly, if these proteins, they are recognized by zona pellucida receptors clearly, only then it can easily enter. If the zona pellucida receptor does not identify the sperm proteins, it says no, these are not human sperm proteins, these are some other cells protein, then the zona pellucida will not allow the sperm to enter towards the cytoplasm of the ovum. So this is how the species is checked at the zona pellucida. All right, guys, right? Now after that, what will happen? Now where has the sperm reached? That's the oocyte. Okay, this is the oocyte. Now the sperm has reached here. Again, there will be another species recognition. Again, there will be a species recognition. So here there are certain proteins. What proteins? On oocyte. On oocyte, we have fertilizin protein. And on the membrane of sperm, we have anti-fertilizin protein. Okay. So these two protein, they also help in species recognition. So if both these are present, they will lock like this and the sperm can easily enter. So these also helps in species recognition. Okay. Now what will happen? After this recognition, the sperm will enter into the cytoplasm. Sperm will enter into the cytoplasm. Okay. After it has entered into the cytoplasm, the metabolism of oocyte will enhance. It gets triggered. The entry of cytoplasm, this is the cytoplasm. The entry of sperm into the cytoplasm of oocyte will trigger the metabolism of the oocyte. So what will happen now? There is increase in metabolism of oocyte. So it was at halt of meiosis 2, right? This was at the meiosis 2 halt, metaphase. Okay, which where it was? It was at metaphase 2. It was at metaphase 2. Now, when you have to remove the halt, that means you have to enter into another phase, and that phase after metaphase is anaphase. So when the sperm enters into the cytoplasm of the oocyte, metaphase promoting factors will move down, and there will be increase in anaphase promoting complex. What are these? These are proteins. The proteins that they are higher in a certain phase. So if I say I have a cell and it has a higher level of metaphase promoting factor, I will say this is in a metaphase. So when the cell has higher anaphase promoting complex, I will say the cell is in the anaphase. Okay, so what is MPF? Metaphase promoting factor. So if a cell has more of a metaphase promoting factor, it will remain in the metaphase. So that was there in the halt stage. Okay. But now what has arrived? Anaphase promoting complex. So if any cell has anaphase promoting complex, that means it has entered into the anaphase. And we will say after the sperm has entered into the cytoplasm, the halt will, it will move away. And what will happen? Meiosis 2 will get completed. Meiosis to get completed. What is formed now? Ovum is formed. What is formed? Ovum is formed now. Simple. So the simple thing is sperm will enter into the cytoplasm and MPF will go down, APC will move up, and it will complete its meiosis too, and it will form the ovum. Alright. So this is how the ovum is formed. Now what will happen? Now this is syngamy. In syngamy there is usually the fusion of plasma membranes. Now what will happen? The karyogamy. So after this, sperm will left over other of its parts. It will only contribute two parts. It will only contribute two parts. One is its pronuclei, right? You will call it as a pronuclei because these are not nucleus. They're not going to form nucleus because they are N and N. Okay, that's the male pronuclei. You will not call it as nucleus because they're going to form. And any nucleus before it is going to fuse, you call it as pronuclei, which is again N. And this is the female pronuclei. This is again N, haploid. They both are going to fuse and they will form a diploid nucleus and a diploid cell, that's zygote. Also, the male is contributing its another centriole. What it is contributing? Centriole. One centriole is already there in the oocyte. Another is contributed by the sperm. Why? Because one centriole cannot complete this division, right? The fusion of both the nuclei is as exactly as the first mitosis. Okay, it is just exactly as the first mitosis because there will be formation of spindles, there will be metaphasic plate that you have done in the cell chapter, right? So here the male proximal centriole is contributed. Okay, the male contributed proximal centriole, and this is female centriole which is already present. So we need both the centriole to complete the first division, and this syngamy is equivalent to mitosis only because here both are fusing. There will be formation of metaphasic plate, and then everything gets segregated. So now both this will fuse, and what they will form? They will form, I'm just putting it here in a smaller size. Okay, now what will be the form? Zygote will be formed, and zygote is 2n. So you must have done this in the chapter reproduction in organism, that zygote act as a connecting link between two generations. So that's diploid zygote is formed, and because here both the nucleus are fusing, you call it as karyogamy. What you call it as? Karyogamy. Karyo word is always used for nucleus. So it's the fusion of nuclei, fusion of pronuclei. Okay. Whereas what was happening here? This was syngamy. This was syngamy. Syn means fusion. So both gametes are fusing. Basically, their plasma membranes are fusing. Okay. All right. So that's the fertilization. Now, what will happen next after the zygote is formed? What do you think? What will happen? The zygote is formed. Can you call the female as pregnant? You will not call it. The female doesn't know. The female doesn't know what's happening. The fusion will always take place around 14th day of ovulation, because only then, only at that point, there is a rupture of graphene follicle. Okay. So imagine she is at the 14th day of her menstrual cycle. Will she get to know she's pregnant? No. She will only get to know when she misses her periods. When she misses her periods. So around 14 to 29 days, a lot of things will happen. So when the fusion of gametes takes place, she doesn't know she's pregnant at that point. And at this point, you will also not say the female is pregnant. Then when will you say the female is pregnant? Let's see. Now what will happen, guys? Now what will happen? Let's see. So we have here uterus and here the fallopian tube. Okay. So that's the uterus. Again, that's the fallopian tube. So here there was a rupture of graphene follicle, and here the oocyte arrives here. Okay. Now the oocyte has met the sperm, and there the fusion has taken place. The fusion has taken place. Now what has been formed? A zygote has been formed. What has been formed? A zygote has been formed. But right now, even in the zygote, there is zona pellucida. Zona pellucida is still intact here. Zona pellucida is still intact here. Okay. Okay, now you will say, ma'am, you said the zona lysin enzyme. The zona lysin enzyme has eroded the zona pellucida. Guys, that sperm at only small point where it is going to enter, it will erode the zona pellucida at that point only. It will not erode the entire zona pellucida. It will only erode the zona pellucida at the point where it is going to enter. Okay, not the entire zona pellucida. So now the divisions will start, and these divisions are known as cleavage. The divisions will start, and these divisions are known as cleavage. Now what is a cleavage? Now what is a cleavage? First of all, cleavage are like mitosis. They are like mitosis, not meiosis. But as comparison to mitosis, they are fast and they occur in the zygote. Whereas mitosis can occur in any of these cells, but the cleavage only occurs in the zygote, and it will form the early embryo. And it only occurs in early embryonic stages. Okay, only in early embryonic stages, from zygote to early embryo. Later on, the embryos do mitosis only. In mitosis, okay, I'm saying it is like mitosis. Okay, in mitosis, one cell divide into two daughter cell, and the size of these three cells are same. Okay, in normal mitosis, what you say, the mother cell forms two daughter cells, and daughter cells are of the equal size of the mother cell. This is what happens in mitosis, guys. Yes, but in the cleavage, what happen is the zygote will divide, and it will form the cells. They are smaller than the zygote. They are smaller than the zygote, and whatever structure is formed, it will still be the same of the size of zygote. And you will not call here as daughter cell, you will call them as blastomeres. You will call them as blastomeres. Okay, now why this happen? The reason is nuclear material is dividing more, but we are not dividing the cytoplasm. We are not increasing the cytoplasm because interphase in the cleavage is absent. Here, interphase is absent. An interphase, if it is absent, it produces the lot of cytoplasm. So it is happening, but the cytoplasm is not increasing. The focus is on genetic material. The genetic material, the nucleus is increasing, cytoplasm is not increasing. As a result, nuclear to cytoplasmic ratio, nuclear to cytoplasmic ratio, it increases. How? Why? Because nuclear or nucleus is increasing, cytoplasm is still the same. It is decreasing. So This is how the daughter cells, which are blastomeres, they are smaller. They are smaller than zygote. Okay. So this is a difference between the cleavage and mitosis. They're like mitosis only. The number of cells are increasing only, but interphase is absent. As a result, cytoplasm is not formed. The cell size is smaller. The daughter cell size are smaller, and the daughter cells are known as blastomere. Okay. All right. So now let's see what is happening here. So here the fertilization has taken place. This is zygote. Now zygote, after 24 hours of fertilization, it will divide it into two. It will show first cleavage. It will show first cleavage, and two cell stage is formed. Which cell stage is formed? Two cell stage is formed. The first division is meridional. What is meridional? That is vertical. Okay, like this. Second division is equatorial, that is horizontal. Okay, now the second division is horizontal, like this. This will lead to three cell transient stage. What is formed here? Three cell transient stage. So this is three cell, this is two cell stage, this is three cell transient stage. Okay, I hope that's visible to you. All right. So here three cell transient stages form. After this, this division is equatorial, guys. Equatorial. Okay. After this, again the meridional division will take place, and here four cell stages formed. Which cell? Four cell stages formed. After four cell, the eight cell stage is formed. Which cell? Eight cell stages formed, and you call it as morula. So morula is 8 to 16 cell stage. How many? 8 to 16 cell stage. You also call it as 8 to 16 blastomere, and it's in the fallopian tube only. Where it is in the? It is in the fallopian tube only. The zona pellucida is still present around it. Zona pellucida is still present. Fine. I'm repeating it one more time. Zygote will undergo the cleavage, first cleavage, which is vertical, that is the meridional, which will form two cell stage. Then the second division will be equatorial, which will form three cell stage. And then the division is again meridional, then that will form the four cell stage. After four cell stage, 8 to 16 cell stage embryo will arise, that is known as morula. Okay. Morula, this is 8 to 16 cell stage. It is mulberry shape. Mulberry, yes. The fruit, yes, it is mulberry shape, and it has only 8 to 16 cells only. Later on, this morula will come out of the fallopian tube, and this 8 to 16 cell stage will be converted because the cells are dividing. Because the cells are dividing, it will form 30 cell stage, 32 cell stage embryo, that is blastula or blastocyst. That is blastula or blastocyst. So here the cells are dividing, they're not stopping, they're continually dividing. Now a 32 cell stage embryo is formed. Okay, like this. Right now, I will not call it as a blastula. I will just say this is 32 cell embryo. Now, what will happen? Since uterus is having a lot of glands, endometrium is glandular. A lot of fluid will enter inside it. Uterine fluid. Now, uterine fluid is entering here, and this will lead to formation of a cavity. And the embryo will look just like this. It will contain an outer layer of cells, and all the cell, due to formation of a cavity, will go to one place and accumulate here. And this cavity formed is known as blastocele. What do you call it as? Blastocele. So this cavity is blastocele. Okay, and the structure is known as blastocyst or blastula. Okay, this outer layer of cell is known as trophoblast. What do you call it as? Trophoblast. And this collection of cell is known as inner cell mass. What do you call it as? Inner cell mass. Okay, Yes. So this entire 32 cell stage structure with this cavity, which is blastocele, is known as the blastocyst. This is also 32 cell stage. You will not call it as blastocyst because it doesn't have the inner cavity. The one with the cavity is known as a blastula or blastocyst. Now what will happen? These trophoblast cells, these cells which are near to inner cell mass, which are near to inner cell mass, these cells, trophoblast cells which are near to inner cell mass, these cells, these are known as cells of Rober. These are known as cells of Rober. They will divide, they will divide and they will form these finger like projections like this. Can you see? They will divide and they will form these finger like projections. You will call them as chorionic villi. What do you call them as? Chorionic villi. Let's move further. Okay, these are known as chorionic villi. This is uterus. Okay, this is uterus. So these cells of Robber, they are forming what? They are dividing and they are forming these finger like projections. You call them as chorionic villi. Okay, so here is your inner cell mass like this. Now these villi, they are forming some enzymes. What are these? Chorionic villi. Formed by formed by division of division of cells of Robber. What are cells of Robber? They are trophoblast cells only. They are trophoblast cells only. They are trophoblast cells only. They are going to divide. Okay, these are going to divide and forming a lot of enzyme. As a result, these enzyme will help in the penetration inside the endometrium. These enzyme will help in the penetration of this villi in the endometrium. In what? In the endometrium. And this is known as implantation. This is known as implantation. So what is implantation? Embedding of the chorionic villi in the endometrium. Now what is formed here is known as placenta. What you will call it as? You will call it as placenta. So we say placenta is partly formed by the endometrium and by the embryo. Okay, so this structure is known as the placenta. Okay guys, so at which day this happens? At which day this happens? We have done this now, right? So I have told you the zygote will start division after 24 hours of its formation. So this is formed around third day. Morula is formed around third day. At fourth day, this is formed. So around fourth to fifth day, this has been formed. And as soon as the blastocyst is formed, as soon as the blastocyst is formed, it will undergo implantation. So the implantation will take place around fourth to fifth day of fertilization. Fourth to fifth day of fertilization. What is implantation? Embedding of blastocyst. Which embryo? Blastocyst stage, not morula. So this is a very common question that arises in exam. Which stage get embedded? Not morula, it's the 32 cell stage with the cavity known as blastocele and the embryo is blastocyst. Okay, so embedding of blastocyst in the endometrium. In the endometrium to form placenta. To form placenta. Okay, so placenta, as you know, now it has two parts. One part which is contributed by the endometrium, the maternal part. Maternal means mother's part. And another is the fetal part or embryonic part that is formed by the chorionic villi. So this is how it will embed and later on it will enter inside the endometrium. Right? So this is what implantation is. I hope that's pretty clear to everyone. All right, let's moving further to the next. Next, now how the placenta has been formed. You got to know how the placenta has been formed. Now we will see what will happen after it gets implanted. Now what are the changes that are going to happen in this embryo? Okay, now how it is going to grow. So as I've told you, this embryo has formed this villi, chorionic villi. Okay, but inside of it is present inner cell mass. So the cells of inner cell mass, they are going to divide into two layers. They're going to divide into two layers. The upper layer of tall cells is epiblast. What is it? It's epiblast. And lower layer of cell is hypoblast. This is hypoblast. Okay? So this is epiblast and this is hypoblast. Okay? Now this epiblast is the one that give rise to, that forms three germ layers. Form three germ layers. What are these three germ layers? That is ectoderm, endoderm, and mesoderm. Right? Ectoderm, endoderm, and mesoderm. All right. So you also know from all these three germ layers, the entire embryo is formed. Your all the body structures are formed. So if a question arises, out of which layer, the epiblast or hypoblast, the entire embryo's body is formed, you will say that's the epiblast. Okay, because it gives rise to three germ layers. Whereas the above cavity will leads to the formation of amnion, and the lower one will form yolk sac. Lower one will form yolk sac. Now, what are these? These are extra embryonic membrane. As I've told you, epiblast will form the entire embryo. It is going to form the embryo. Okay? It is going to form the entire embryo. Whatever is extra to the embryo, which is not a part of the embryo, but it is present around the embryo, you call it as extra embryonic membranes. What do you call it as? Extra embryonic membranes. So, what are these? These are extra embryonic membranes. So, extraembryonic membranes are the membranes that are present outside the embryo. What are these? One is amnion, another is yolk sac, third is chorionic villi. So, chorionic villi, which is forming the placenta, right? That's also extra embryonic. And the last one is allantois. You cannot see allantois here. That is formed when the entire embryo is formed. Okay. So these extraembryonic membranes, they all have certain functions to perform. They have different functions to perform. So let's see how do they look like when the embryo grows. How do they look like when an embryo grows? Let's see. So if I have this chorionic villi, this is entire embryo. Okay, that means the sac of the embryo. So here we have embryo embedded like this. This is embryo. Here we have this embryo embedded, and this you have must have you must have heard of that embryo in a mother's womb is present in a water bag. In a water bag. So that's a water bag, and this water bag is made up of amnion. What it is made up of? Amnion, which is an extraembryonic membrane. This amnion, it secretes amniotic fluid. So that's why it's known as water bag, because it has amniotic fluid. All right. So this amnion is formed of two layers. The green one is the amniogenic layer. Is the amniogenic layer. So this green one is the amniogenic layer. And the outer one that I will draw now, this one is the mesoderm. This is the mesoderm. Okay. So that's the mesoderm. So both these layers, they are forming what? They are forming the amnion. So we say amnion is formed of two layers. One is amniogenic layer, another is mesoderm. Amniogenic layer is technically a type of ectoderm. It's technically a type of ectoderm. So if someone asks you, tell me of what layers amnion is made up of, internally by ectoderm, externally by mesoderm. Okay. Similarly, we have this structure which is the chorion, Okay, so these are the villi of chorion. So you will call it as chorionic villi. So similarly, chorion, externally it is made up of ectoderm, the one in the orange, whereas internally it is made up of this layer, which is the mesoderm. So this is mesoderm. So it is made up of ectoderm as well as mesoderm. But both are opposite. Here internally it is ectoderm. Here externally it is ectoderm. Okay. Then we have here two structures. Here we have two structure. One is yolk sac and another is allantois. So they are made up of two layers. Both have, same type of arrangement. This is yolk sac and this is allantois. Both have same type of arrangement. The internally they are made up of endoderm and externally they are made up of mesoderm. So you need to remember that what others are made up of. Okay. Now another thing. What does they do? Amnion. It secretes amniotic fluid, and amniotic fluid have very important function to perform. It acts as a shock absorption, right, or shock absorption. So here, amniotic fluid. It has a lot of function to perform. Shock absorber. It is also antibacterial, guys. It will kill all the bacterias. Also, it contains waste. Contains waste, and it will prevent desiccation or drying. It will prevent drying or desiccation. All right. What is the function of yolk sac then? What is the function of yolk sac? It is the early site of erythropoiesis, because in the starting stages the bone marrow has not been formed. In the starting stages the bone marrow has not been formed. This is the early site of erythropoiesis. That means formation of RBCs. All right. What about chorion? You all know it is forming chorionic villi that will form placenta. What about the allantois? Allantois, it forms umbilical cord and early urinary bladder. Early urinary bladder. Okay, now what's the umbilical cord? So for that you need to understand what's a placenta, right? So you must have seen in a newborn baby there is a small rod-like structure attached to its navel. Have you seen that? No, haven't you? Okay, so let me show you. If this is a baby, okay, these are legs, these are arms. So don't laugh on my baby, okay? So here, there is a rod like structure attached to the navel. So this is the structure, umbilical cord, and this gets attached to the placenta. It is attached to the placenta like this. Okay? This is how baby is present. And this is where the female's uterus is like this. Okay, this is the uterus. This is the uterus. So the structure is placenta and this structure is umbilical cord. Umbilical cord. Okay. So umbilical cord contains blood vessels. It contains blood vessels. And this blood vessel have 100% fetal blood. It has 100% fetal blood. There is not maternal blood, but it contains the fetal blood only. Fetal mean this baby. Okay. Now, placenta, as I've told you, it is formed by two parts. One is a uterine part, uterine wall or endometrium, which is the mother's part or maternal part. Another is a chorionic villi. Another is a chorionic villi, which is a fetal part. Which is a fetal part. Okay. Now, what's the function of placenta? What is it doing here? What is the need of placenta? Because fetus has to grow. Fetus has to grow. So it needs a lot of nutrients. It needs a lot of nutrients. Okay, fetus has to grow. So it needs a lot of nutrients. So this one, it acting as a organ. It is acting as an organ that will supply a lot of nutrition. Okay, it will supply a lot of nutrition. The first function of placenta, it will give nutrition. Also, this fetus is producing a lot of waste, so it will also help in excretion. Whatever waste this baby is producing, it will go through umbilical cord to the placenta to the mother, and mother's kidney will move it out. It is not peeing, it is not in the outside environment, right? Now, otherwise, it is also acting as a barrier. It is also acting as a barrier. Barrier against what? First of all, we don't want that a fetus blood and mother's blood get mixed. So it is acting as a barrier here. Also, we do not want a lot of viruses and microbes to enter into the fetus. So again, it is acting as a barrier here. And one important thing, it act as an endocrine body. It act as an endocrine body. That means it will secrete a lot of hormones. So let's see what hormones it can produce. So when I've told about barrier, I've told you we don't want a lot of microbes or viruses to enter. But again, guys, there are certain viruses that can pass through placenta, like HIV. So HIV, if a mother is HIV positive, the fetus can also be HIV positive because it can easily pass through the placenta. All right. Okay, let's see what hormones does a placenta forms. Hormones of placenta. Hormones of placenta. Let's see. So, what are the hormones secreted by placenta? Let's see. So, the first hormone to be secreted by placenta is HCG. This is human chorionic gonadotropin. Human chorionic gonadotropin. Gonadotropin. What does it mean? What are gonadotropins, LH and FSH? Because this hormone, it work exactly like that of LH, so this is how you call it as gonadotropin. So it is secreted by the placenta and it maintains a corpus luteum. You know what happened? The LH has a fate that it will go down because estrogen goes down, LH will go down. When LH goes down, the corpus luteum will disintegrate and no progesterone will be there, and hence no endometrium will be maintained. But here, because the pregnancy has taken place, so what we want that corpus luteum should remain, get maintained. So the hormone which works exactly like that of LH has been introduced or produced by the placenta during pregnancy, initial stages of pregnancy. That is HCG. So what does HCG does? It mimics. Mimics means it works like. It mimics LH and maintain corpus luteum. And maintains corpus luteum. And this corpus luteum, it will keep on secreting progesterone. It will keep on secreting progesterone and hence it will maintain endometrium. So, this is a hormone which is detected in the urine of a female to check whether a female is pregnant or not. So, this hormone occurs after the implantation. So, whenever the implantation takes place, the placenta will be formed, and this is the first hormone to come out. So, then that is checked in the urine of a female, and hence you can say the female is pregnant at that time. So, during implantation, we say the female is pregnant, not during fertilization. Why? Because between the fertilization and implantation, you have no clue what's going on in the body. You have no indicator. But when the implantation takes place, the placenta will be formed, the HCG will come out, and this HCG will act as an indicator. It will comes out in the urine, and you have seen that in the advertisements, these small sticks are there, right? Like Prega Sure and like that, right? So these sticks, these work in a way, they detect whether in a urine the HCG is present or not. If HCG is present, the female is pregnant. Okay, so first hormone is HCG. Let's talk about the another hormone, guys. Second is HPL, human placental lactogen. Human placental lactogen. Lacto. You have seen those boxes of, infants' food, lactogen, and all these names, right? So they are associated with milk, lactose, sugar, right? That's all associated with milk. So this is the another hormone secreted by the placenta, and this helps in growth of mammary glands. Growth of mammary glands, because mammary glands produces milks, right? Another hormone, third one, is estrogen. Yes, it is. This placenta also secretes estrogen and the progesterone, main pregnancy hormone. And this progesterone, main pregnancy hormone. Estrogen and progesterone both helps in the development of mammary glands, right? They also helps in the mammary glands development. But this helps in development of ducts of mammary glands, right? Whereas this one helps in the development of the alveoli, that means the glandular tissue, the glandular tissue of mammary gland, right? Okay. Apart from this, there is another hormone, that is prolactin. Prolactin also helps in the milk secretion and the development of glandular tissues of mammary gland. But prolactin is the hormone of, or hormone secreted by, anterior pituitary. So do not get confused. This is not the hormone of your placenta, rather, it's the hormone of your anterior pituitary. Okay. All right, then what does the other functions of estrogen? Estrogen helps in the formation of oxytocin receptors. It forms oxytocin receptors. What is the need of these oxytocin receptor? Oxytocin is a hormone secreted by the hypothalamus, stored in the posterior pituitary, released by the posterior pituitary, right? So oxytocin plays important role in the parturition, that we'll be discussing in the later sections. Apart from this, there is another hormone known as relaxin. Relaxin is secreted in the later phases of pregnancy, that means in the late phases of pregnancy. But from where? You all know corpus luteum secretes a very small amount of relaxin, so from ovaries, right? So who secretes relaxin? Ovaries, right? Ovaries secretes relaxin. Now, what's the function of relaxin? Relaxin means relax, right? So it's going to relax the cervix as well as the pubic symphysis. What's the reason? Because if these two things are relaxed, the baby can easily move out, right? So relaxin function is to relax the cervix and pubic symphysis. What is pubic symphysis? It's a part where two hip bones join, right? For easy delivery of baby. For easy delivery of baby, right? Okay. So some of you must be thinking, ma'am said HCG is important because we want to maintain corpus luteum and we want progesterone from the corpus luteum. Fine. On the other hand, ma'am is saying that placenta forms progesterone. Then why do we need corpus luteum? See, in the first 3 months of pregnancy, we are dependent upon corpus luteum. Why? Because placenta is not completely formed. Placenta is not much developed that it can form progesterone. Later on, after 3 months, placenta is completely developed. Its growth has taken place. Now it can produce progesterone, and progesterone can maintain the endometrium. Okay, so it's secreted by placenta and it is maintaining placenta. So nice, right? So that's why the progesterone is the main pregnancy hormone, because it is maintaining endometrium, main pregnancy hormone. Why? Because it maintains endometrium. All right, that you all know that it maintains endometrium. All right, so that was it about the hormones of placenta, guys. Let's talk about the gestation. What is gestation? What is gestation? Yes, it's a time period. It's a time period from fertilization to delivery of the baby. So we say, like you must have heard, that around 9 months the female gets pregnant. For 9 months, the baby is in the mother's womb and it develops there. You must have heard of it, right? So in human, it's around 9 months. In days, if we say, it's around 266 plus minus 28. So plus minus 28 means never, there is no there is no such rules that it will only take for 9 months. It's a bracket of, right, 28 days. It can be 28 days before, it can be 28 days after. So we say 266 plus minus 28. If I talk about gestation period of a dog, it's 60 to 65 days. Cat 52 to 65 days, and elephant 607 to 641 days. It's a lot, right? So every animal have different gestation period because every animal have different body complexity. So what happened in these 9 months? Let's see. So what we say is the pregnancy is for 9 months, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. And 1 month have 4 weeks. So first 3 months form a trimester. That is first trimester. So the entire pregnancy is divided into three trimester. This is the second one and this is the third one. Okay. So one trimester is equal to 3 months. One trimester is equal to how many months? 3 months. Okay. So if we talk about these females 9 months, so we have divided them into three trimester, and one trimester is the uh, is equal to 3 months. So now what happened after 1 month? After 1 month, the embryo's heart is formed and heartbeat can be heard. So after the 1 month of pregnancy, the embryo's heart is formed first of all, and heart starts to beat. And you can actually hear the sound with the help of stethoscope. Yes, and that's the first sign of growing fetus. So what's the first sign of growing fetus? First sign of growing fetus, that you can hear the heartbeat. You can hear the heartbeat. Okay. Then by the end of second month, now when the second month passes, by the end of that, fetus limbs and digits are formed. What are limbs and digits? This is a limb and these are digits. Okay. By the end of 12 weeks, that is around first trimester, because I told you 3 months is equal to one trimester, and in each month we have 4 weeks. So total how many weeks are there? They're around 12 weeks. So most of the major organ systems are formed. So around first, at the end of first trimester, a miniature is formed with small type of organs. Okay, so we say the entire organ system is formed by the end of the 12 weeks. Limbs and external genitalia is also formed. What is external genitalia? Like in male's penis and in female's vulva. Now at the fifth month, the fetus will show first movement that you call kick. In the movie you have must have seen, right? The first movement, appearance of hair on head. On the head, the hair will appear. Then at the end of 24 weeks, eyelids will separate. At the first, the eyes are not open. The eyelids both are like joined to each other. But now they are going to separate and the baby is going to see, right? Now eyelashes are also formed. Body is covered by fine hair. Now body will have small hair. You have seen when a baby is formed, it has, very soft hair on the body. That's the lanugo. Okay. And that appears during by the end of 24 weeks. Then we have end of the 9 months, the baby is fully formed. Now it is ready to come out. Okay. So now what makes the baby come out? Let's see about that. Now what makes a baby come out? And that's parturition. What's the parturition? Yes. Parturition is delivery of the baby. Delivery of the baby. Okay. So here for parturition, listen to me very carefully. So here for parturition, a reflex works. I hope you all understand what's a reflex, right? Reflex is anything that is sudden and unplanned response is a reflex. For example, you touch the hot plate and immediately your hands move out. You didn't plan for that. You never know the plate is going to be hot. That's a reflex. Just like that, there is also a reflex, and that's fetal ejection reflex. Fetal ejection reflex. Fetal means fetus, ejection, that it's going to come out, and reflex because it's a reflex mechanism. Fetal ejection reflex involves a lot of neurons and hormones, so we say it's a neuroendocrine reflex. What we say? It's a neuroendocrine reflex because it contains both neurons and the hormones. Now, during fetal ejection reflex, the that you say the during fetal ejection reflex, who is the one who is giving signal? Who is the one who is giving the signal for initiation of this reflex? So is that the fetus? Is that the mother who is giving the first the signs, or the first you can say stimulus? No, both mother and fetus, both are responsible for initiation of the fetal ejection reflex. So here we have a fetal response, and then here we have maternal or mother's response. How both are responsible for initiating the reflex? First of all, when the fetus is fully formed, it is fully formed, it will move. It will move. And this movement of fetus, You must have heard that you are born upside down. You must have heard that your head comes first, right? So at the end phases of pregnancy, the fetus, it starts to move, and its head comes out near the cervix. Okay, so if this is the uterus, this is the cervix, the fetus head will be present just here. That will start to move. When it moves, the neurons on the uterus neurons, they will send signal to the mother's pituitary. Okay, so see, here is a mother's uterus. The neurons associated with it will send signal to posterior pituitary. Now, posterior pituitary will secrete the hormone, that's oxytocin. It will secrete the hormone oxytocin. Since here neurons are involved, you call it as a neuro. And here, which hormone is coming? Oxytocin. So, oxytocin will come. Okay. All right. Yes. So, now what's happening is, due to movement through neurons, through neurons, stimulus will go to, stimulus will go to, or stimulus sent to maternal. Maternal means mothers. Maternal posterior pituitary. Alright. Now what will happen? Now, after this, mother's pituitary will secrete oxytocin. That's the reflex that has came from the fetus. Okay. Or the stimulus that has came from the fetus. What about mother? Now, mother's pituitary is sending, or it's secreting oxytocin. Oxytocin binds to its receptor, in uterus. All right. Now this uterus will contract, and this is how we say the mother has started contractions. Okay, the uterus will contract. Okay, now this contraction of the uterus will send signal to, mother's posterior pituitary. All right. See, in a way, you want to stimulate mother's pituitary. You want to stimulate the mother's pituitary. Okay, so that it should release the oxytocin. So it's like a in the mother's body, we can say a feedback mechanism is going on. More the oxytocin, more the contraction. More the contraction, more stimulus to pituitary, more the oxytocin. So more the oxytocin, more the contraction. More the contraction, more stimulus to pituitary. And this is how more stimulus will be given to the posterior pituitary. As a result, there will be a lot of oxytocin in a female's body. More amount of oxytocin will cause a lot of contraction. You say it as a labor pain. What do you call it? As a labor pain. So this is how the reflex starts. So once the reflex is started, the female starts having contraction. The female starts to feel pain. She'll get to know, now I'm feeling the pain, that means the baby is going to come out. Now let's see what happened, and how the delivery occurs. So the delivery occurs in three phases. First is a phase of dilation. Phase of dilation. So during phase of dilation, the cervix dilates, cervix dilates, cervix dilates, right? When the cervix dilates, it's the major sign that the fetus is going to come out. Okay. Otherwise, contraction starts and labor pain starts. And labor pain starts. All right. So this time period is around 10 to like 12 hours, and sometimes in some female like 1 hour. Okay. So that varies. Second, then comes the phase of expulsion. Phase of expulsion. So in the phase of dilation, the baby is trying to move, right? In the phase of expulsion, the baby is actually pushing, or baby is actually coming out from the cervix, right? So in the phase of expulsion, the baby is coming out. The baby is coming out, right? So first we have the phase of dilation, then we have the phase of expulsion. So the phase of expulsion, the baby is actually coming out, and now after the baby has came out, the head will come out first. Head comes out first. Now the umbilical cord will be cut. Umbilical cord will be cut, and the baby is now taken out, and the nurses will like wash up the baby, and baby will cry and all, right? And then the third phase, which is after birth. After the birth has taken place, now mother have the placenta. The placenta is taken out from the mother's womb. Placenta is taken out from mother, from the womb of mother. All right, yes. So these are the three phases how the baby it comes out, and the mostly the question arises whether it's endocrine mechanism, neuroendocrine mechanism. You will say it's neuroendocrine mechanism because both neurons and hormones are responsible. Second, who gives the stimulus for this reflex? Both fetus and mother both are giving the stimulus. Ultimately, what is happening due to the stimulus? There is increase in oxytocin. All right, so this is a major question that arises. All right, so the baby has been formed. Congratulations to everyone. I don't know whether it's a girl or a boy. Now we will talk about the lactation. Now the baby has came out. It needs to have something. The baby's hungry, right? So the baby wants mother's milk, and that's lactation. So lactation, the female have mammary glands. Yes, the female have mammary glands. So the milk forming hormone, milk secretion, is due to hormone which is prolactin, and milk let down is due to oxytocin. As you know, during parturition the oxytocin is already higher. The amount of oxytocin is already higher. Now what happened when the baby sucks the nipples of the mother? When the baby sucks the nipple of mother, due to this suckling action, the the signal will be sent to the mother's pituitary, and hence there is oxytocin release. When there is oxytocin release, it will lead to the milk let down. So this suckling action leads to the formation of more milk as well as the release of the more. Fine. So milk let down is done by the oxytocin, but prolactin will stimulate the alveoli to produce more and more and more milk. So the first milk that appear, first milk that is yellow in color, and you call it as colostrum. What do you call it as? Colostrum. It's yellow in color. It's very much important. It is very much important for the fetus. Why? You must have heard that the first milk of mother, initial milk, is very much important. Why? Because fetus or the infant that has been born, it has no immunity right now. It may contract with a lot of infections. So the mother is providing here passive immunity. What's a passive immunity? That's immunity where your body itself is not forming any antibodies. Passive immunity is an immunity where your body is not forming any of the antibodies or cell. Rather, you are taking ready made antibodies from another person. For example, you must have heard during COVID, many people were who have recovered from COVID. They were giving their plasmas to the people who are in the severe condition. So that's passive immunity, because the people who have recovered, they have antibodies against COVID, and these antibodies will directly going to the patients who have not been recovered properly. Fine. So here this milk contains IgA type of antibody. Which type? IgA type of antibody. Later milk is white in color. That's not rich in antibody. That's not rich in antibody. It's white in color. So first milk is very much important. Right now you know everything. So that's lactation. So do remember which hormone is producing milk and which hormone is letting to the milk let down. So now it's time to solve some questions. Okay. Match the items given in column 1 and 2. That's quite simple. First of all, proliferative phase. Proliferative phase. What's the function of proliferative phase? It's another name of follicular phase. Remember, from 5 to 13 day of menstrual cycle. Secretory phase is another name of luteal phase, and during menstruation, there is breakdown of endometrium. So A, 2, B, 3, and C, 1. So what is the correct answer? A2, B3 and C1, that's 4. So fourth is the correct answer. Simple. So these type of question can appear in the exam. A menstrual cycle is very much important, as I've already told you guys. Next we have GnRH, a hypothalamic hormone needed in reproduction, acts on. So GnRH is very much important both in males and as well in females. It stimulates the anterior pituitary. Fine. So similarly, all those which have posterior pituitary in the option is almost wrong. The anterior pituitary gland and stimulates secretion of LH and oxytocin. Oxytocin is the hormone which is released from posterior pituitary. So post anterior pituitary that stimulate LH and FSH, very true. So the answer is 2. Let's read another option. Posterior pituitary gland and stimulate secretion of oxytocin. Posterior pituitary gland and stimulate the secretion of LH and relaxin. In a way, which have posterior pituitary, the option is incorrect. Fine. Next question. Moving further to the next. Colostrum, the yellowish fluid secreted by mother during the initial stages of lactation, is very essential to impart immunity to the newborn infant because it contains natural killer cell, monocyte, macrophage, immunoglobulin A. Hurry up. Yes. So this is a question that falls in the category of two chapters. One is human health and disease, another the human reproduction. So you know colostrum contains immunoglobulin A. Now, what are NK cell? The NK cell or natural killer cell. These are the type of lymphocyte. Monocyte, you know, it's a part of blood, and macrophages, they are phagocytic cell. So answer is 4. Simple. I know you can crack it. Next, the amnion of mammalian embryo is derived from. Aha, that's my favorite question. So we have done extraembryonic membranes, guys. We have done extraembryonic membranes. So amnion is a type of extraembryonic membrane. Extra embryonic membrane. So that is derived from ectoderm as well as mesoderm. So you have to, just remember it. And that's answer 1. All right, simple. So yeah, there are some things you need to memorize, guys. There are something. So first is the correct answer. The difference between spermiogenesis and spermiation is, what is spermiogenesis? Formation of sperm from spermatid. Spermatid to sperm is spermiogenesis. What is permeation then? It is the release of sperm from head of Sertoli cell. From Sertoli cell. Okay. So in spermiogenesis, spermatids are formed. Incorrect. Sperms are formed. In spermiogenesis, spermatozoa are formed, while in spermation, spermatids are formed. Incorrect. First is correct, but the later is incorrect. In spermiogenesis, spermatozoa are formed, while in spermiation, spermatozoa are released from Sertoli cells into the cavity of seminiferous tubule. Absolutely correct. Next is saying, in spermiogenesis, spermatozoa from Sertoli cells are released. No, that I've already told you. So third is the correct answer. Okay, guys, cool enough. Easy, very easy. If you have if you have learned all of these properly, if you have sincerely attended my these two chapter lectures of human reproduction, I know you can crack any of the question that can arise in the NEET, right? You just try the PYQ. If you don't trust me, you just have to do one thing, is to, with more focus, you have to attend these lectures. Okay. Hormones secreted by the placenta to maintain pregnancy are HCG, HPL, progesterone, prolactin. Prolactin is a hormone of anterior pituitary, so it's a big no. HCG, HPL, estrogen, relaxin, oxytocin. Relaxin comes from ovary and oxytocin comes from posterior pituitary, so it's a big no. HCG, progesterone, estrogen, glucocorticoids. Corticoids are from adrenal cortex, so it's also a big no. HCG, HPL, progesterone, estrogen, absolutely correct. So answer is 4. Okay. So you better learn what are the hormones of placenta. Next, select the correct sequence for transport of sperm cells in the male reproductive system. You have to do this. This was in the last lecture. So tell me the transport of sperm from where it is formed. It is formed in seminiferous tubule, right? So testes, epididymis, vasa efferentia. No, vasa efferentia comes first, guys. So this should be here. So option one is incorrect. Seminiferous tubule, true. Then rete testes, vas efferentia, epididymis, vas deferens, ejaculatory duct, urethra, urethral meatus. This is absolutely correct. Okay, see what's wrong with this. Seminiferous tubule, vas efferentia, epididymis, inguinal canal. No, no, no. Inguinal canals has nothing to do here, right? That's a passage through which the ducts are going out. Testes, epididymis, vas efferentia. Again, the first option. Okay, the same thing. So, what is the correct answer, guys? Second is the correct answer. Okay, if you know the duct system of the male reproductive system, this is easy. This is really very easy. Okay, anyways, next. Colostrum, the yellowish, that's I think a repeated question, so just leave it. Select the correct sequence of events. Okay, so now tell me the different events. That's first topic of this chapter. Gametogenesis, gamete transfer, syngamy, zygote, cell differentiation, cell division, organogenesis. Gametogenesis, gamete transfer, syngamy, zygote, cell division, cell differentiation, and organogenesis. Gametogenesis, gamete transfer, syngamy, zygote, cell division, organogenesis, cell differentiation. Gametogenesis, syngamy, gamete transfer, zygote, cell division, cell differentiation, organogenesis. Okay, so there are certain terms that are new to you here, only one or two terms, so I'll explain here only. So first of all, the gametes are formed. Then during insemination, the male deposit the gamete into the male gamete into the female, and after the gametes they are deposited, both the gametes will meet, and this will lead to the fusion of gametes. After the gametes are fused, they will form zygote. Now they will start cleavage, that is a cell division here. And after that, the cells will undergo cell differentiation. So, cell division and cell differentiation, they are very too important. They are very too important event during embryo formation, during embryogenesis. What is embryogenesis? Formation of embryo. So during embryo formation, the organs are formed. So the formation of organs, you call it as organogenesis. So when the cells will divide, the number will increase. When the differentiation occur, the cells gets mature. And when they get mature, they will later on form the organs. Okay. So organogenesis is formation of organs. Alright, so do not forget this. You can write this in the copy as well. So two main events of embryogenesis. Main events of embryogenesis is cell division and cell differentiation. So, what is the correct answer, guys? That's 2. Alright, next. Which of the following hormone is responsible for both the milk ejection reflex and the fetal ejection reflex? Relaxin, estrogen, prolactin, oxytocin. What was parturition all about? Which hormone was there? I have only talked about one hormone during parturition. What's that? That's oxytocin. The fetus and mother both were giving stimulus to the posterior pituitary so that more oxytocin is released, because this is a hormone that works on muscles and lead to its contraction. So answer is 4. Next. No new follicles develop in the luteal phase of the menstrual cycle, because why there is no new follicles formation during luteal phase? First, both FSH and LH levels are low in the luteal phase. Follicles do not remain in the ovary after ovulation. FSH levels are high in the luteal phase. LH levels are high in the luteal phase. Okay, very simple. When you have read this question, you must be thinking, oh my god, we have not done this. Oh my god, I don't know that stuff. So when you think about these, you have already lost the question without even learning the option. So I always tell my students that never ever give up while reading a question. Rather try thinking, because when you get into the negative of your brain, when you start giving negative thoughts to your brain, the brain itself gets defeated, or you itself get defeated. So don't think like that. It's a very simple question. Why there is no follicles are getting mature there? First, You know, follicles always remain in the ovary. They are getting mature due to hormones. Fine. If there are no follicles, that means there is menopause, and that doesn't occur. Okay. Then FSH levels are never high during the luteal phase. Okay. LH drops during the luteal phase. Then what's the reason? FSH and LH are low. That's why there is no formation of new follicle. FSH is the main hormone that leads to maturation. If it is not there, there is no maturation of follicle. Okay, so what is the correct answer? One. So you must be knowing, oh my god, that's a very simple one. And I just think it's a difficult one. No, it's a simple one. If you know the game of hormones, you know the menstrual cycle, you can crack any of a question. All right, all right. Next. That's it. So this was all about human reproduction. This was a big chapter, and I hope you must have understood all the hormones and all. And I suggest one more thing. If you have not done human reproduction and you're stepping towards reproductive health, it's a big no from my side, right? Before learning or reading or getting or attending the lecture of reproductive health, go through human reproduction first. If you understand human reproduction, if you understand hormones, reproductive health will be quite easier for you, and it's also one of the important chapter. So first go for human reproduction, then for reproductive health. I'll meet you in the next class. Till then, keep studying hard, and just solve questions, PYQs, and any of the question, any module that you have, and just keep on working hard. We are working hard with you, so that's your responsibility to work hard as well with us and solve questions and crack everything like that. Don't think this is not enough. This is more than enough. What I've taught you is this is more than enough. Trust me, if you want to crack me. I'll meet you in the next class. Till then, bye bye. All the best. Take care of yourself. Tata.